I'm looking at the gift of eternal life. The gift of eternal life. Anything that God gives to us through Jesus is free. Anything that God gives to us through Jesus is a gift, freely given, without conditions and without any requirement that you have to meet to receive. You don't have to pray for it. You don't have to cry for it. You only have to receive it because it's a gift. John chapter 3 verse number 16. John chapter 3 verse number 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God so loved the world. I love the emphasis of the so loved the world. In the Greek, that emphasis shows an emotion that is active, an active emotion. And sometimes people love you verbally, they love you with words. But love here in this context is not what God said, but what God did. It's not what God said, but what God did. When Jesus was born, that was not the giving of Jesus. That was what we call the incarnation. Please pay very good attention. That is what we call the incarnation. The incarnation is when God became a man. When God became a man. And at that point, he was not actually born. When God became a man, at that point, he was not actually born. You see, Jesus was not born in the womb of Mary as some people think. What happened at the womb of Mary was an incarnation. That's the word, incarnation. You see, God came to man. God came to dwell with man. God became a man. He wasn't born. God became a man. Jesus was not born by Mary, because to be born means you began. A birth means when you began. So Jesus was not born by Mary. In John chapter 1 verse 1, John chapter 1 verse number 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word, which means the Word pre-existed the beginning. Now, if you can be at the beginning, that means you began before the beginning. Look at John again, chapter 1 verse 2. John chapter 1 verse number 2. The Gospel of John chapter 1 verse number 2. Who is on that computer? Verse 2. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Now the person on that computer is really confused. NS, you need to go and check who is on that computer, because he's typing different things the way he wants. Now, so if you can't be at the beginning, that means the beginning began with you. Anybody that was there when the beginning began means the beginning began with you. So if the beginning began with you, you couldn't have been born by Mary. If the beginning began with you, you couldn't have been born by Mary. Look at that John again, chapter 1, verse number 3. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 3. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Verse 4. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Verse 5. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Verse 6. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. Now look at verse 10. Verse 10 of John chapter 1. John chapter 1 verse 10. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Him who? Him, the Word. The Word that was with God, and the Word that was God. That is, he came to the world. And he said, the world was made by him. That means he pre-existed before the world. He pre-existed before the world. Look at verse 11 of John chapter 1. John chapter 1 verse 11. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. Next verse. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. As many as received him. So him, the Word that was with God, the Word that by him all things were made, as many as receive him, that's a person. Now look at verse 13 of John chapter 1. John chapter 1 verse number 13. Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Next verse, now verse 14. And the Word was made flesh. The Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.